Good evening and welcome again one more time to the Marty Heiser Show. Whatever you were planning on doing tonight, maybe watching a little Fox News, seeing how they're yelling at Trump a little bit, maybe watching a pregame show on the upcoming Super Bowl, maybe going to Netflix and getting a little Homeland, binge watching Homeland. Forget all that. Because the next hour, you got to stay right here and watch this show, because I'm about to introduce you to some pretty heroic people. We're going to meet a missionary pilot that did, what was that, that pilot that did the Spirit of St. Louis? Lindbergh. He did his Charles Lindbergh impression, flew like a little Galdang Cessna across the Atlantic Ocean on his way to delivering this plane, 8,000 miles. To deliver a plane from somewhere in North America up across the Atlantic down into Africa to help underprivileged and impoverished people, not just to bring them the gospel, but also to bring them needed medicine and just help. So this heroic pilot, this crazy guy who you're about to meet, a brother of a guy you'll know, Dave Strait, his brother Jim Strait, he flew a plane 8,000 miles and his radio went out over the Atlantic Ocean. Now, if you've ever flown over the Atlantic Ocean, which I haven't, well, take that back, I have. But it was in a Delta jet with a lot of other people, and people brought me scotch to drink. So it wasn't quite the same thing as a heroic pilot Jim Strait did as he flew over, and he's going to tell us how his radio went out. He didn't know where he was exactly. He took out his cell phone, he called Ireland, and he said, "Hey, mate, how you doing? Come on over for a pint." And he was never happier to hear an Irish accent. But before we get to that, I want to introduce you to my new best friend in the world. Jim Bubba Bay has written a book called The Miracle on Hammertown Road. I've read this book. My wife will tell you, I was sitting on the couch getting all choked up, and she's like, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I can't believe what this guy has gone through." He's here in the studio, and he's just going to share his story. Jim, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And I'll tell you, I couldn't put this book down. And it's non-commercial radio, non-commercial television. So, just Google Miracle on Hammertown Road. And there's websites and everything like that. Jim Bubba Bay, his story. Tell me what happened and what brought you to write this book.
Well, in November 15, 2009, I actually was out metal detecting, is my big hobby. And I was out all day.
Now, metal detecting, that's the guys with the earphones and the wands, and you go around and you find people's rings, engagement. There was this one St. Francis medal that you found for someone in the book, right?
Yep. My
took you like
friend,
10 minutes.
Took me 5 minutes. It had been gone for 20 years. He got given it when he was first anniversary, 24-carat St. Christopher's medal, and he lost it. My friend said, I said, "Well, where is it?" And they said, roughly, so 20-something years later, I dug it up in 10 minutes, handed the guy, best find ever. Because the guy just cried when I
wanted to give you money for it, you said no.
Just best find ever. By crying. The guy was all choked up. I said, "Hold out your hand." I dropped it in. It looked like the day he lost it.
Wow.
It's awesome.
All right, so you had an interesting life. You went to grade school, high school. You still have the hammer throw record for your high school,
yes,
was
I
it?
do.
Played a little football, played a little basketball with Harlem Globetrotter impressions. So you're kind of going through life okay.
Yep, but Bubba.
You're Bubba. I mean,
right.
a guy named Bubba usually is good. So then you get married, and first, what happened with your child? Because you had some heartbreaks.
Yes, when we got married, my one son, we had him and Logan, and then we decided to have another child for two, and then my wife had twins, stepsons. I have two stepsons, and when we met, and then I went to, we had our son Logan, and then we tried one more, and then my son ended up being born 23 and a half weeks to, that was his gestational period, and he was born 1 pound 4 ounces. And he lived 10 days, and he unfortunately passed away. And in the process of that, though, God knows what's going on, because little did we know that one of the twins had kidney disease. So the whole time our one son was going on, our other son had kidney disease from birth, and we didn't know it. And he, like a month after my one son James died, my other son had swollen feet. And we lived in a tiny house, little cottage, and we were proud of it. It was our first home, but it was little.
Right.
But everybody had their own little room.
Right.
And then we ended up, so anyway, in the process of that, he had swollen feet. I thought maybe a spider bit him. Well, it turned out he had kidney disease.
Yeah.
And then there's no way it would have been hard to handle both sicknesses.
Yeah.
You know, my one son was born pound 4 ounces. They told us he was going to have some disability, good odds that he was going to have trouble, you know, going forward and stuff.
But you talk about it in the book, and it's interesting because, of all things, John F. Kennedy, President Kennedy, had a child. His name was Patrick, I believe. And similar to your little premature baby, lived briefly. Your son lived for 10 days.
10 days.
But the heartbreak and just the devastation of having that happen. And you talk about how you held the baby in your hands. The doctor said that there was nothing left that they could do.
No, they called us up. Died. It was the worst call. They called up and asked us to come give them permission to pull the plugs and all that. And
then your older son, and by the way, you had a gravestone with both of them together. You talk about it in the book. You found the perfect gravestone. I don't know if you can get a shot of that. But then your older son had kidney failure, and it was something you talk about, just a financial strain, taking him back and forth to the hospitals, the difficulties because you had him on dialysis and did everything you could. And he was finally kind of getting on his feet, but then he succumbed to kidney failure. And tragically, and this is all in the book, but tragically he died in his apartment. He was 18 at the time?
18.
And no one knew. All of a sudden he wasn't returning his calls, and then you had to go over and your wife found him there.
Yep, she found him there 3 or 4 days dead, they said. Wow. So we never talked, her and I, what she saw, but I could just only imagine.
Yeah.
When I arrived, it was like a crime scene because no one had seen him in 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
So they had to treat it that way, and then it'll be natural from the kidney disease.
Okay, so you've had enough hardship for one lifetime just with that.
Yes.
Just with that.
Yes, that was enough.
And then on November, whatever it was,
15th,
2009, you go walking. And you talk in the book how you've struggled a little bit with weight, but you really found that, I love the image of you running in place in college and in the door jam and something like that. And I've struggled with weight a little bit myself. I try to, you know, run around as best I can, doing like refereeing hockey games or whatever I can do. But you talk about how you're going, and you and your brother, I guess, would have these walking meetings where you just, instead of like sitting somewhere and talking about the business, you had a landscaping business in the family, you would go on walks and you would talk during these walks.
Yeah, we both, you know, my family's always kind of, we're not the thinnest family in the block.
Yeah, okay. It's all genetics. We're big bone. I know the feeling.
We're big bone. So
exactly.
And being Bubba, it's obvious that, you know, and so we used to like get done at work, and then we would sit there and talk, and then we're like, wow, we can really talk and walk at the same time. We can do 2 things at the same time. So we started doing walking meetings and stuff. And
so you're doing that, and then one night, November 15th, you're out walking, which was your habit. It was your exercise, so you were walking.
Yeah, but I wasn't
and what
walking.
Happened?
I actually wasn't walking for exercise that night. What happened was, as in the book, my wife and my ex, we split apart, and I was living on my own, and it's not
unusual where marriages fall apart when there's a child that's passed away.
Yes, it's hard, and then you have 2.
It's very common, unfortunately.
Yeah, you have 2, and it adds to it all. But anyway, so we went and I made myself some, we call it not so special tunas, you know, specials in the book, and I wasn't feeling well, and so I just I had been out all day metal detecting, so I had plenty of exercise all day, and so I ended up going with so I ended up just went for a walk around my house, because normally I don't walk around where I live.
Right.
You know, there's no street light stuff, and so I just went out to get fresh air before I went to bed.
Right. Yeah. And as you're walking on the side of the road, you're not sure, because some of the memories aren't there, but either a car came or something, but you fell in a culvert or some sort of gully that was 15 feet down?
Yeah, 14 to 15 feet. I free fell.
You free fell.
Yeah.
Landed on your head.
Landed on my head, my left side first.
And the injuries that you talk about were 23 broken bones, 26 fractures, including 11 ribs, 10 vertebrae. Your shoulder and your skull was practically caved in.
Yeah, it was all, it's got an indentation here. Thank God I got a good head of hair.
Well, I mean, it's unbelievable. And then you talk about how you were at the bottom of this culvert, and you summoned the will just to get your body out of this 18-foot concrete pit, it sounded like. And you had this one thing which was so telling, so poignant. You said that you wanted to make sure that your eyes would close because you knew you were going to die. Your life blood was seeping out of you. And this is what you said. I closed my eyes partly from pain, partly from exhaustion, partly due to blood, sweat, and tears, but also because I didn't want someone to find me dead on the side of the road with my lifeless eyes staring off into nothingness.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. You know, I tell people I was in death's door. I was half my body, and by the time I climbed out of that I moved out of that culvert to die.
Yeah.
That was my goal, and that was just based on my ex-wife finding my son Robert dead in his apartment 3 or 4 days. And they were
and
not.
she never really got over that.
No.
Can you imagine
No.
coming and finding your son who's been dead for 4 days?
Right. So, and they were not going to go and find me. They were going to have to get the dogs to find me that night because my parents had been visiting me. They were at my house actually, spending, and they were going to go back to Vegas and Las Vegas, and they were going to go to town. Because that's where I normally walk, in town.
Yeah.
And I just went out for fresher breath air, you know.
So you are completely messed up.
Yeah, there's no hope.
Your last thought is close your eyes because you don't want to have someone come up on a lifeless corpse with the eyes closed. You get up to this log and you just say, this. You kind of say, this will be a nice place to die. And you're on the log. Can I read what happened next? Because this is the part where it's like miraculous. Okay. It says, and their light seemed to be coming, like a light coming over a hill and spreading over the hill. The light became so intense it was blinding, a brilliant white. But there was also a softness to the light. It felt comforting, as though the light were somehow holding me in its arms. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And then from the midst of the brilliance, a human figure walked towards me. A wind began swirling around me, moving over me and rustling through the trees. My pain subsided, my breathing became much easier. My eyes adjusted, I could see better, see the figure in the light, a grandfatherly bearded man wearing what seemed to be a robe and a weathered but kindly face. Then the light around the figure began to sparkle in a variety of colors, a kaleidoscope of twinkling stars, a frame around the white light at the center where the figure stood. And there, standing behind, to one side of the figure, I saw my two sons who had passed away, Robert and James. They no longer looked sickly. I remember then that one thing that I had yelled down in that hole was, God, please God, help me. Though I had fallen into a gully and landed on my head, though I had lost a great amount of blood, thought it was possible I was delirious and in shock, I knew without a doubt in my heart, to the depths of my very soul, that the figure standing before me was God.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's quite the, and you know, I've been doing interviews and all that, and as I go along more and more, I got asked on another interview about what did I see, an orb or what did I see, and they knew I saw, a figure, and I wasn't going to move from the log if it was just an orb or the light. Mm-hmm. For me, I needed the human figure kind of form to give me comfort.
Yeah.
And then to make it more real, I mean, come on, my son lived 10 days.
Yeah.
He was in heaven. He couldn't have done anything bad not to be anywhere else.
Yeah.
So they were there to reconfirm what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And my other son did nothing wrong in 18 years. He was a teenager, but he was a great kid. And that was just confirmation what I saw
Wow.
You know, and then the amazing thing, like you hear these stories and all that, and what the cool thing was the log you talked about.
Yeah.
Everybody in the world will know they're laying on a log at nighttime. Yeah. Everybody. We could all go out right now inside and all lay on a log. We'll be laying a log. But can you describe the log in the dark?
Yeah.
So, because God got there and was so bright and so beautiful. Now, there's no street lights on the thing. The road is a dead-end road. There's like, I don't know, 7, 8 houses on it. Mm-hmm. And there was no houses right where I was. And because it got so bright, I was able to see. You know those logs that they're old, but they're like telephone poles. They're like hard on the outside to lose their bark. Mm-hmm. I was laying on that.
Wow.
So God comes. I'm able to see what I'm laying on. After He leaves, the miraculous thing too, people can't believe, because even in the hospital, when I woke up out of the coma, they all thought I crawled ended up being my neighbor's house. Yeah. I ended up walking. Yeah. With 26 fractures.
26 broken bones,
yeah.
And you're walking.
200-something feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, after I came out of a coma, my family, my brother was there, my mom, my dad, my sister. I described them. I told them I met God, and they're like, you better be sure you met God. And I said, I met God at this log, and I described this log. So when I'm at rehab, my brother, there's Karen Bridge website. It's a great website. You can make things. Karen Bridge. Caring Bridge.
Caring Bridge.
Yeah, it's a great.
So it's like a website you can set up if someone's had a real injury or something.
Sick or cancer.
Leave notes.
Yeah,
and
leave notes and
updates of their condition.
Yeah, it's a great website. It's and so I ended up when I was in rehab, my sister-in-law Mary Ann and my brother John said, hey, do you want to go see your website? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, yeah. My neighbor who I knocked on her door actually wrote a nice message, not knowing I met God. Yeah, she wrote a good godly message. And then what happened was, then my brother says, you want to see where you fell? And I was like, I didn't know if I was ready to see where I fell, but I'm like, okay. So he pulls up the first picture, and there is the log I described straight out of a coma that I met God at in the picture.
Wow, wow.
And that was 100% confirmation then.
And it's interesting, you talk about in the book, you talk about all the rehab you went through, all the pain you went through, all the emotional ups and downs. You talk about your father who had recently retired, and yet he became your full-time nurse. It was surreal. And you hadn't necessarily been that close because he was running the family business pretty much all the time. You didn't see him as much when you were growing up.
He woke up before we woke up, and he came home after we went to bed.
Wow, wow.
So and then Sundays we bought an old house, and Sundays were wreck the house days. Pound the sheetrock down, and we all worked together. And it took years to get it back. But that's how it was. Yeah.
Wow, wow. Now you talked about God was trying to get your attention, and how this might have been just the way to do it. You say, they say that if you want fruit, sometimes you need to shake the tree. Maybe all along, all through my life, God was giving me signs or speaking to me in a still voice. Maybe I was so busy, like we all are, working and paying bills and raising a family and watching television that I never noticed. Maybe God decided with me He needed to be a little bit more dramatic. Yeah. Is that what you think happened? Well, you think God was trying to, get a hold of you, had to drop you on your head?
Yeah, yeah.
God forbid.
Well, in the book, The Prayer of Jabez was a big thing for me. And when I moved to Arizona, it was in a box, and I didn't pack it in there. And I read it from Bruce Wilkinson. And I got from The Prayer of Jabez is like, here I am, God, I'm ready to do your work. I'll do whatever you want from me, and that's what I got out of the prayer. So I've been praying it since 2006.
So this was before the accident. Yeah, you prayed a very dangerous prayer.
Well, to
and
me,
said, God, I'll do whatever you want.
Yeah, I do whatever you want, whatever you need. But my only issue with myself is I don't know the Bible, and I didn't know the Bible, and that's one of the messages why I wrote the book is God's for everybody, whether you know the Bible or not, because I'm living proof that He came for me, and I didn't know the Bible. I've learned some stuff since and all that, and with my brain injury, it's hard for me, and I'm open to learning the Bible. I just didn't know the Bible. I didn't learn the Bible. I wasn't a great Christian. I was one of those Christmas, Easter Christians for church. Mm-hmm. You show up there, you do that. But I always listened to Christian music, and I believed. Believing's a big thing. If you don't believe, then you got to believe. And I listened to a lot of Christian music on the radio. Matter of fact, the day I got hurt, on the way home, I was listening to Christian music after the,
What do you listen like K-Love, or do they have
they have Sound of Life or whatever. It's
Sound of Life. That's a Christian station.
Yeah, Christian station up there, and I listen to that, and I really enjoy that. And you know, so, but anyway, the prayer of Jabez, I was like, so I didn't know how I was going to help God.
Uh-huh.
You know, and that's part of the reason why I wrote the book too now, because now I know, you know, here's a perfect example of somebody who believes. I always believe the stories, you know, I always believe when people got hurt and met God, I believe people talked to God and all that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not, you know, and so all of a sudden, boom, there I am, and how bad I was to do what I did to end up where I ended up. And what's cool, I talk to non-believers, and I'm okay with that too, because if you don't believe that I met God, now you're saying I'm more awesome because now you're saying I did it all myself.
Yeah.
Because as you see, the cops found, my cousin who was a sheriff found where I fell, and there was blood in my cell phone, and I knocked on my neighbor's door.
Yeah.
So it was from there to there.
Even getting from the cell phone to your neighbor's door with the amount of blood you lost, with 27 broken bones. One of it might have been your brother, or someone said that it was almost like there was a deer gutted at the thing, and it was dragged across the lawn because they followed the blood trail to find out what happened.
It looked like they, down in the culvert gully, looked like my brother and my couple of fellow workers and a good friend of mine went that morning, the next morning early, and they said it looked like somebody gutted a deer and dragged it up the hill. And then the other key to that log was my family said there was a lot of extra blood at the log. Yeah. So I definitely
because you're there
stopped.
having your close your eyes so no one finds you with your eyes, your lifeless eyes.
I was dead.
Up.
You got to understand, I was dead at the log, not dead, permanently dead, but for me, I was dead and content of dying.
You're giving up.
Surreal.
You're like, this is it. Oh, here's God. He's coming to take me.
Yeah, because
they're my dead children. This is all working out. And then he's like, no, I want you to tell your story.
Yeah.
You're like, what the heck? I mean, sorry, God, but I'd like to. Can we just go to the by and by?
I mean, the amount of energy and whatever I had left took me forever to get out of that culvert, gully, all the way up to that, on the log. It took forever and so much of my energy. I was done, and I was content. And here's the problem I had. I had the dilemma. I have my family here. And I knew my kids were in heaven. Yeah. So I was a winner. I was like either staying with, to me, I thought I was going with that, my two kids. Yeah. I didn't have no hope.
Kind of like, so this is how it works. God's real. I'm going to heaven.
And what's funny is God didn't come and fix me. He just filled my hope and my faith back up. It's like he pulled in with like, I was in mid-air flight, big jetliner, and he pulled up with the gas and filled me back up for the next walk. And the funny thing is, he didn't tell me what to do. He didn't tell me that's where I had to go after. He just said, you got things for me to do and you're going to live. And we had our little conversation. Yeah. We had our conversation. And I tell people that it was like I ended up, it's like me and you walking on the road and seeing each other talking for a little bit, and then we go on our way. Yeah. And then that's when he went away and it got all dark again. And then I saw this little tiny light inside this house. And I know it's kind of symbolic, but that's where I had to go.
Now your takeaway, I love you. You kind of read, it says, every life has its mistakes, its regrets, its terrible tragedies. God knows that I've had my share. I've been down in the pit, literally and figuratively, almost as deep as a person can go. There were times I couldn't see any light at all from where I was, but I climbed up out of there time and time again. Some friends tell me it's a miracle after all that has happened to me, after the death of my boys, the 2 divorces, my lifelong struggle with weight, financial problems, a fall that should by rights have killed me, that I still give praise to God. People often ask me if there have been times in my life when my face upturned to the heavens, when I cried out, "Why me?" My answer is that, odd as it may seem, I have almost never asked that question. Partly because no matter how bad you think you have it, there's always someone who has it much worse. Since my accident, I have met so many people who are also meeting terrible challenges. After they talk to me, they often say, I don't have it as bad as I thought, and I can shake their hand in wonder because I'm usually thinking the same thing. And I believe that God gives no one more than he can handle. And then this is the thing about your eyes. It's interesting because you go back to your eyes. I've been given a new pair of eyes, quite opposite the lifeless eyes staring off into nothingness. You've been given a new pair of eyes. I've learned to see people differently. I can recognize in their eyes a deep need to talk, to share, a need to simply be with someone. And then the culmination, and this is towards the end of the book, it says, I'm not special. I'm not rich, not famous. I don't have any special talents. I'm not even a good practicing Christian. but God came to me all the same. It's sometimes overwhelming to realize I saw God, to have had an experience I had. Why me? Maybe because I'm just Bubba Bay, and if God is there for Bubba Bay, then God is there for you too. Maybe that's what God wants us all to know.
Yeah, that's what I got out of it, and the people that read the book, one of the big things they like is that I'm just a normal guy. I'm just a normal,
You're Bubba.
I'm Bubba,
You have a landscaping business.
Yeah.
You're loved by your family.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
You like to, what is it called, metal
detect, treasure hunt and stuff, yeah. Yep, I dig outhouses for bottles. I'm a nut.
Dig outhouses
for bottles? I'm a nut. I'm a nut with that stuff. It's my hobby, it's my passion. And, I'm just a normal guy, and that's kind of what people kind of relate to,
It's interesting. I'm a Christian too, and I know a couple Bible verses. I don't want to go crazy on you, but there's a verse in Corinthians that says, the God of all comfort will comfort us in our difficulties so that we're able to comfort others with the comfort with which we got from God. And so I think sometimes you are much better able to comfort others, to talk to them about loss. Like
right.
You've had difficulties, this is what I've gone through, and there's a tenderness, a new set of eyes, as you talk about. And then there's this verse in Ecclesiastes that says, two are better than one because they have a better return for their labor. For if the one falls, his partner will be there to pick him up. But woe to the one who falls that doesn't have anyone to pick him up. Right. And on that gully on Hammertown Road, the God of the universe reached out to you.
Yeah, he did. And it's crazy. And I got people get sixth sense and gut feelings, and I didn't have it. I didn't. I kind of did what I was supposed to do, and if I'm supposed to be there, I'd be there. Now, oh my God, I wake up, I have this plan, and then I get this gut feeling, no, you ain't doing that today, you're going there. I'm like, why am I going there, right? And I end up going there, and I'm going there, and I meet somebody that needs to meet me.
Like a lady making a bed, it turns out being a nun.
Yeah.
And you asked her, I don't know if you believe in God or not, but this is what happened. You're talking to a nun.
I talked to her the whole time.
She's in the God business.
Yeah, I was talking to the nun the whole time, and little did I know that. Yeah. So that things happens. I go to brain injury walks, and and I still do that. But I have these great plans to do something, and it just totally changes. And then sometimes I need to meet those people. It's just like sometimes, like I'm unfortunately, a guy I got to be friends with had cancer and passed away. And when I was working at the gas station, and we became friends. Yeah. We became friends because we had doctors. Yeah. I was doctored out from all the doctors, and he is too, and he was, and we became friends, talking, and then he disappeared, and then he passed away.
You say God is for everybody.
God's for everybody.
He met you in your need. The book again is Miracle on Hammertown Road by Jim Bubba Bay. I highly recommend this book. If you go online, just put in Miracle on Hammertown Road and see what comes up. A lot comes up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marty.
I really appreciate you sharing your story. I tell you, I couldn't put it down.
Thank you.
Ask my wife. She's like, what are you crying about? I was crying a little bit. Just leave me alone. I can't believe it. He just buried his second child. And we hadn't even, gotten to the pit there. But thank you so much. It's a blessing to know you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.